Okay.
You're live.
We're live now. Okay, thank you. I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the county's website. Members, you are now all aware you need to keep your video camera switched on for the duration of the meeting and keep your microphone muted except when I invite you to speak. Please keep the right-hand function if you wish to ask a question or comment. There is always a risk that we may run into technical problems, and I would ask for your patience. If this should occur, I will adjourn the meeting and ask for officers to correct the fault if that can be addressed. The public broadcast will be paused at that point. If it's not possible to correct the problem and the fault, I will adjourn the meeting until such times as it can be reconvened. May I remind members and officers and the public speakers that all virtual meetings will be recorded and all these meetings will be put onto the county's website. So with that introduction, members, I will now do a roll call of members and ask you to confirm that you are present. So I will go to in alphabetical order. Councillor Batchelor.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Connor.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Fuller.
Present.
Councillor Hartford.
Present.
Councillor Howell.
Present.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Present.
Councillor King.
Present.
Councillor Manning.
Present.
Councillor Taylor.
Present.
And myself. I will then move now to the agenda, and I'll deal with item 1 on the agenda and ask Dawn Cave to see if there are any apologies or declarations of interest.
We have no apologies, Chairman.
Okay. Are there any members that wish to declare at this particular point any declarations of interest? I see no hands raised, so I take that as a no. We will then move on, I think, to the item 2 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the last meeting, which were on the 6th of October. They've been circulated. Can I ask members that if they are agreed to those minutes? Again, I see no raised objections, so I will take that as unanimous agree to the minutes. Thank you, Dawn, if you could record that accordingly. We then really move on to the action log, and that has been published, and I'll now ask Ian, you put a hand up, so please.
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, I mean, whether this comes to the action or not, log or not, but I want to raise it. Obviously, Councillor Howell and I passed a motion through Council unanimously that requires a report to come back to this committee within 3 months. So I would expect to have seen that on the action log, okay. This committee.
Okay. Dan, could you take that away as an action, please? Is to be recorded on the action log, please? Or Dawn? I have some sort of Dawn.
No problem, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. For those of the public, there is always a bit of delay for people to take their mute button off. So apologies if that causes you a little bit of a hiccup sometimes. Officers, are there any other actions which you need to bring to the attention, please, of members? Linda Hartford.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I just wanted to ask about the paper that was withdrawn on verge maintenance recently. I don't think I can see anything on the action log. Is there going to be something coming back to us shortly? Thank you.
Okay, I'll take Simon King's next question. Okay, Simon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had 2 questions. One was about the verges as well, because I've had a number of complaints about verge maintenance. So I think it would be timely to bring this back. And the second one was just to ask for an update on action point 30, the updated cycling map of Wisbech, and I just wanted an update on the progress.
Okay, thank you for those. My understanding in respect of the verge maintenance, there is a workshop planned shortly for that. I wonder if officers could remind me and remind other members of the date, please. I think it has been organised. I've certainly seen something.
Chairman, yes, I will, during the course of this meeting, I'm not 100% certain of the date, but I will check and try to get that information through during the course of the meeting. But as you say, Chairman, there is a workshop planned, and that is going to feed into a paper. So just to reassure Councillor Harford and Councillor King, there will be a paper coming, and it will come prior to the new grass cutting season. Just to explain why it's dropped off, as officers, what we have been doing is looking at how we can sort of manage the workload into each of the committees. So we are looking to move it around, but I can assure members of the committee that it will come in advance of the grass cutting season. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Dawn, can you please note Councillor King's comment and record that in the minutes, please, and in the action log?
Yes, Chairman.
Okay. I see no other member wishing to raise
Sorry,
anything on.
Mr. Chairman, I just also asked for an update of the Wisbech cycling map, please.
Yeah, that's the bit, Simon, I was referring to. Bearing in mind, I know there is a workshop organised. Apologies, I was trying to look at my diary, and it's very difficult because, of course, I look towards my diary, my handwritten diary. So I'll ask Graham Hughes if he, at some point in the meeting, remind us of the date. Okay, I know it's in. Okay.
I think, Mr. Chairman, we're talking at cross purposes because you're talking about the verge maintenance,
yes,
and I'm asking about the cycling map of Wisbech.
Yeah, I think Dawn. Yes, go on.
Sorry, Chairman. The work. I'm aware, Councillor King, of the requirement. As you say, it's an action number 30 on the action log. I know that there is work underway, and I can't say definitively when it's going to come back to the committee. But again, with the chairman's permission, I will try and find that out during the course of this meeting, and then, if it's acceptable to members, update towards the end.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's very kind of you. Thanks.
We'll get an update from Mr. Hughes later on in the meeting. Okay. If there's no other queries on the action log, nope. Okay. If we can move on really to item 4, which is petitions and public questions. We do have one public question, and that relates to item 6. I will bring the person in on that, Mr. Jonathan Powell, at item 6. And take that particular public question at that particular point. Other than that, there are no other petitions or public questions for this meeting. So I think we can move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the professional service framework, and that we have no public questions on that. So I'm going to ask Alex to introduce that particular report, and then open it up for some discussion and debate after that. It would be useful, Alex, if you could please introduce yourself to the members. I appreciate the fact that you are new to the authority. So over to you, Alex.
Yeah, hi everyone. So my name's Alex Deans, and I'm the interim group manager for MID, as of being with the county for a couple of months now. So I'm just picked up this item and will introduce it. So the report is to inform committee of the outcome of the procurement process for the framework and seek committee's approval to award the contract to the 2 preferred bidders. In terms of background, January 2019 approval was granted to seek establishment for the new professional services framework. The project board was established between the Greater Cambridge Partnership, the County Council, the Combined Authority and Peterborough City Council to manage the process. Market engagement took place over summer 2019, and this identified a 5-year framework, 2 providers, the framework to be hosted by the County Council. It identified the scope of services for the framework, which are identified on page 9 of the report. It identified that potentially up to £13 million worth of spend would go annually through the framework. And this would be in the form of a contract that would best meet the objectives, what was required. A two-stage procurement process commenced in December 2019. In terms of that procurement process, at stage 1, 8 organisations expressed an interest. 1 did not meet the selection questionnaire requirements and was excluded from the process. During stage 2, 1 of the remaining 7 bidders withdrew, which left 6 bidders who submitted their final tenders in May 2020, which had been extended slightly due to the COVID restrictions. The final tender was assessed 70% on quality, 30% on price. During the assessment, the evaluators raised concern with 1 of the bidders that their bid was abnormally low or non-compliant. That bid was subject to further detailed analysis, and a meeting with the bidder took place on the 5th of October this year, where the bidder provided further assurance to the evaluators. Further to that meeting, there was analysis and advice from legal and procurement teams, which concluded that their bid was compliant and that a satisfactory account was given for the price and costs within, and subsequently all 6 bids were accepted. The 6 bidders and their scores are provided in the confidential Appendix A, which cannot be made public due to commercial confidentiality. A committee decision to award the contracts today, as per the recommendations of this report, will be subject to a 10-day standstill period known as Alcatel. At the end of this period, details of the contract award can be made public. Further to the contract award, there will be a period to finalise and sign the contract documents, and it's proposed they would go live from the 1st of February 2021 to allow services to be withdrawn off the contract, off the framework. And just to take you back to the recommendation, so the committee is asked to note the procurement process for the joint professional services contract and to award the framework contracts as noted in Appendix A. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. 1 raised hand at the moment. Noel Kavanagh. Oh, no.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just I was curious to know at 110, page 12, there's a reference to the issuing of a contract notice in the official journal of the European Union. It'd just be interesting to know what exactly that is, and if that's an official requirement for all of these types of procurements, and if post-Brexit that will be a necessary thing to have done. It's just so it's a detailed question, actually. Thanks.
Okay, Alex, I've got some other raised hands, so I'm going to take 3 questions and then ask you to come back. Okay.
Okay.
Next one is Simon King. Simon, please ask your question of Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Alex, also just want to say welcome to the authority. I hope you enjoy your time with us.
Thank you.
I'm just a little confused, Mr. Chairman, if I may ask this question, because we're being asked to approve a confidential appendix that we haven't seen. That isn't normal, I think, is it?
Yeah, okay. I'll ask Alex to come back. I'll take Ian Manning's question and then come back to Alex, Simon, okay?
Thanks, Chair. Just to say that I have seen the confidential appendix. So just to say that I'm happy to support this, and just to make the comment I made last time that I would have nonetheless preferred some ranking in the process around the organisation's own net zero ambitions. I understand from the response last time from the officers that they regarded that as being something that you would do as part of the contract, but I still would prefer to see it. Nonetheless, happy to support this, and well done on the work.
Perhaps before I ask Alex to come back in, I think it would be useful after the meeting, Alex, if you circulate the confidential appendix to all members. That hopefully Simon should help you understand where we've got to, because obviously certainly Ian Manning's seen it, I've certainly seen it, but obviously not everybody has. So if we can perhaps circulate that after the meeting would be much appreciated. alternative actually is we can deal with that at the end of this meeting by going into private session, and we can then have a greater discussion if you so wish. So, Alex.
Mr.
Sorry.
Chairman, can I just reply to that? No,
Yeah.
I was concerned that perhaps nobody had seen it, but as you've seen it and Councillor Manning has seen it, and presumably Councillor Howell has seen it as well.
Actually, I've got it here right in front of me. It's on page 17 of my documents.
Yeah, okay.
I couldn't find it, but anyway, I'm content if all of you are happy with it. I'm certainly content with that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think we'll circulate it after the meeting, just as what I call belt and braces response, Simon. Okay. So, Alex, if you can go back to, I think the first question is from Councillor Kavanagh, which is about European. Okay, please.
Yeah. So the EU the ODU notice, if a contract has a certain value, which this one exceeded, then there is a requirement currently as a member of the European Union to actually post that as per paragraph 1.10. So it basically alerts the other European countries that there's opportunities to bid for this, potentially from overseas organisations. How that goes forward post-Brexit, that isn't clear at this time, but I'm sure we'll find out in the new year. Regarding Councillor King on the Appendix A, that should have been circulated to the members of the committee. So if that hasn't been done, obviously I can only apologise for that. And as we said, we'll make sure if anyone hasn't got that appendix, we're certainly happy to circulate that as part of the recommendation to award. In terms of the net zero carbon, that would have been part of the quality assessment. So 70% of the contract was awarded around quality, and that thing about carbon reduction, reducing and those sort of measures that they can bring forward, that will certainly have been part of that quality assessment. So apologies, it wasn't actually specifically mentioned in the report, but be assured it was certainly part of the process.
Okay. Ian, Councillor Manning?
Yeah, just apologies, Chair, just very quickly come back. Just, Alex, what I was getting at was the organisation's own net zero ambitions as opposed to what they can deliver as part of the contract. Can you just confirm whether I've misunderstood your comment or not?
I think in terms of the framework of the contract, we would look that the services could be provided in that manner. I think perhaps what you were alluding is to actually supporting that in terms of having the expertise and the specialisms.
No, I'm thinking.
Now, Ian, I think I'll come in at this point. I think I understand the question. Okay, and I think what you're asking is what's the company's view, if I put it like that. Okay, Alex, I think it will be sensible perhaps for you to take away what the two bidders, what the company's view is on the issues that Ian has raised. Ian Manning, Councillor Manning has raised. Apologies, I keep on calling Ian, and I keep on calling myself Ian. So I think, Alex, maybe take that away. It's about what the company's view is on the issues that Ian has raised. If I'm correct in what, yeah, okay, you're nodding. So that looks okay. Take it away, I think, Alex. It may be sensible to do that. Okay.
Okay. That's fine.
I've got no other questions from members, so I think we've got the recommendation, which are A and B, which Alex has read out. We will circulate the confidential part after the meeting. Are we all content with that? I'm looking to see if there are any raised hands that doesn't agree with the recommendations. I see none at all. I therefore, Dawn, take that as unanimous recommendation as laid out on the papers, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, if we move on now to item 6, which is Lancaster Way. Okay, item 6. Before I ask and before we get into the debate, I'll ask Chris Foyle to present the paper. I think it is him that is presenting it. Once we have gone through that, I'd like to invite Mr. Powell before we have the debate. So, Chris, it's over to you to introduce the paper, please. Or is it Graham Hughes introducing the paper?
Chairman, no, it is Chris. I just wonder if Chris, you are on mute. He's definitely in the meeting, Chairman. Chris, could you unmute?
Maybe he's shy.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can, Chris. Welcome.
We can indeed.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, not to worry. We all have these little problems with Zoom meetings some days. Chris, over to you. Please introduce the report on Lancaster Way, please.
Yeah, sorry, I was saying as when I was on mute that I got kicked out of the meeting. So if you could just bear with me for a second, I just need to find it again.
Okay, no trouble at all. Take your time, please.
Right, so do you just want the brief overview or do you want me to read everything?
Oh, no, we do not want you to read everything. Members will have read the report. I would wish you please to highlight matters of importance for members to consider.
So the main matter that needs discussing is that there was a high proportion of objections to the consultation. Some 56% of respondees either objected or strongly objected to the current plan. A high proportion of these objections surrounded the facilities for pedestrians and cyclists crossing the A142, which we have since suggested that we could do prelim design on a signalised crossing of the A142 to improve things for pedestrians and cyclists. Given the numbers in the consultation response, we feel that by providing a pedestrian and cyclist crossing, those who had previously objected might then reassess their feelings towards the scheme and then support it.
Okay. Members, we have got an appendix which shows some of the detail on this particular issue. Do you, Mr. Hughes, wish to add anything else to the report at this moment in time?
I think only Chairman, I would just emphasise the point that this is a combined authority scheme, and so as Chris has outlined, the proposal before members today is to add in a signalised crossing. The combined authority have, subject to the decision of this committee, agreed that that would be appropriate for us to do. I would just emphasise also the point that Chris has made that at this moment in time, we would have to do detailed design on such a crossing. So it would be difficult to sort of be more specific in the recommendation, but certainly we are recommending to committee that that should now be included within the works, whereas on the information that went out to consultation, there wasn't a crossing included. So that's a change that's being proposed to committee today. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you for that. Before we open up the debate, I'll ask Jonathan Powell, please, who represents Ely Cycling Campaign, to address the committee. So good morning, Jonathan, and welcome to the meeting. I think Dan will let you in shortly. If not, he's already done so. And you have 3 minutes in which to speak. So please take your time when you're ready.
Yes. Please, may I have access to screen sharing?
And Jonathan, we can hardly see you at the moment. We seem to have a lot of your books, but that's better. Thank you.
Yeah. Please, may I share my screen? Thank you. So, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the committee. My name is John Powell, and I represent Ely Cycling Campaign. The first point is that I'd like to point out that the signalised crossing of the A142 near the roundabout is very welcome. But the meeting papers mention that this is a pedestrian crossing. And we'd like some reassurance that, in fact, this is intended to be more than just a pedestrian crossing. And I'd just like to remind members that, councillors, that according to local transport note 120, that if the crossing doesn't comply with LTM 120, then Department for Transport funding can be withheld. So that's a question. And I'd like to move on now to the siting of the crossing. So here you can see a display of the roundabout with the proposed changes. And I'd like to point out that pedestrians and cyclists approaching from the Witchford direction need to cross first Witchford Road, then Lancaster Way, and then the A142 on the Witchford Road east side. So that's 3 crossings. And our proposal is that instead of that, that the direction of flow here is merely across the west side of the roundabout. The reason for that is that Lancaster Way by 2030 is going to get a whole lot more busy. And I'm just going to show you a few photographs here of what's happening. So here's a photograph that I've taken of the exit from Lancaster Way onto the roundabout. In the bottom left-hand panel, you can see a picture of the road, which shows the point at which the doubling up of the lanes, 2 lanes, is going to be started. In the picture on the top left, top right rather, you can see that currently the dualling of this lane starts just before the crossing. Now that does make a difference to pedestrians because currently the layout protects them from the worst of a 2-flow system. If the doubling up of the lanes is extended further back, then pedestrians are going to have to cope with 2 flows of traffic to cross to the central reservation there. On the other side, this is a picture looking north from the crossing point, and it shows the problems that pedestrians currently have crossing this road. They're unable to tell whether traffic is going to continue straight across the roundabout or turn into Lancaster Way. And with the speed of the traffic approaching and crossing that roundabout, it's very difficult to make a crossing because you're standing there waiting for no traffic to be crossing the roundabout at all. With the proposed changes, the traffic's going to zoom into Lancaster Way into the entry even faster than they are now, which is going to make crossing of this side of the crossing of Lancaster Way more difficult too. So what we're proposing, I'm showing here in my rather poorly generated illustration, and it shows that it's possible to put a crossing on the western side of the roundabout rather than what appears to be the proposition, which is to put the crossing that's signalised on the Ely side on the current site of the crossing. So that is our proposal. I point out that for Lancaster Way users, then they will have to cross Lancaster Way because in the already approved changes on Lancaster Way, there's not been any indication that there'll be a footpath put up the Witchford side of Lancaster Way. Given that the users of Lancaster Way are more likely to be proficient and less likely to be disabled, less likely to be children, less likely to be elderly, then I think we need to give priority to users coming from the Witchford side rather than Lancaster Way side. So our proposition is that a signalised crossing of the A142 be positioned on the western side of the roundabout, and that includes not just a pedestrian crossing, but as has been done elsewhere in the county, but namely near Babraham, that the crossing is for cyclists, but also because there are equestrians in the locality, that this also be an equestrian crossing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. if we can just go back to what I call take the shared screen away before I continue. But what I will now ask Mr. Powell for any members who have got any points of clarification in what you've said to now ask. So if we can go back to the main screen with video cameras. At the moment, I cannot see who wishes to speak, if at all. So if we can return.
Share your screen, please.
I'll just hold off, Dan, and take the shared screen away, please.
Mr. Chairman, while you're waiting, Councillor Kavanagh is the first to ask to speak, followed by Councillor Manning.
Okay. Well, no apologies. No, I can't see. Oh, okay. I can now see. Okay, Councillor Kavanagh. I think. Yep.
Actually, I had jumped in a bit earlier. I mean, my comment was going to be for the debate, but I could.
Okay.
Actually, I could actually ask John this question because it is related. It's we got quite a late letter in from Linda Worth, the equestrian representative, and she mentioned that a good way forward on this would be to have a Pegasus Crossing as at.
No, I don't. No, don't wish to stop you, but I don't think Jonathan can answer a question that somebody else has raised. To be fair to him,
I was going to swing it round so that John could actually answer. It was just that, were you thinking along the same lines as a Pegasus Crossing as that exists at the Babraham roundabout?
Absolutely.
Okay, I think you've got there now.
Sorry.
John, thank you, John, for answering the question. I think you've answered it, which is a yes, I think. Okay. Ian Manning?
Simple question for John. If the crossing's moved to the west side, would DD Cycle Campaign support this project?
Yes.
Okay.
And so would Cambridge Cycling Campaign.
Okay. I've got no other hands raised. So thank you, John, for your contribution. Thank you for sharing your ideas and the maps. We will now go to the debate, which I'm, of course, happy to listen to and continue to listen to. Ian, are you hands down, is it?
Chair, I guess it's a point of order, but I understood that Councillor Dupre was addressing the committee before we move. And
I think Danny's reading out her.
Mr. Chairman, Councillor Dupre has just joined us, just for you to be aware.
Oh, okay, fine. Yes, you're quite. My understanding was that Dan Snowden was going to ring it out, but if Lorna Dupre has joined, I will open it up now for Lorna to speak. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. My understanding was that I'd been invited to address the committee, so thank you very much for allowing me to do so. The design for the Lancaster Way roundabout that was put out to consultation was clearly the wrong one, as evidenced by the fact that of those who expressed a view in the recent consultation, it was opposed by a 2-to-1 majority. There are at least 10 reasons why the junction design put out to consultation was the wrong choice, and why it received such a strong negative public response. I'm conscious, however, that I have only 5 minutes to address you, so I will narrow those points down to the following. The concept of improvement of the roundabout has only ever been viewed through the prism of increasing capacity and speed for motor traffic. For pedestrians, cyclists and equestrians trying to cross busy lanes of traffic onto reduced verges, the original design self-admittedly makes matters worse. If the promised additional jobs are created, most of those employees will travel by car, as this is the mode the original design promotes, and because the roundabout will make active travel more difficult and more dangerous. The original design ignores successful solutions implemented elsewhere in Cambridgeshire, including, as we've just heard, on the A1307 by Babraham Research Park. The original design ignores the commitment of the combined authorities' local transport plan to active travel, the direction of the government's gear change report, the national planning policy framework, the district council's local plan, and the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 2019 summary for policymakers, all of which promote sustainable transport and reduction in car use. At a technical level, it also fails to comply with the design manual for roads and bridges and with Local Transport Note 1/20. Fortunately, the residents of East Cambridgeshire are more committed to sustainability than that and have given the original design a big thumbs down. The report before you seeks to address the deficits in the original design and the objections of consultation respondents by adding a signalised crossing on the eastern arm of the roundabout. However, this is specified as a pedestrian crossing, offering little help for cyclists and none whatsoever for equestrians needing to cross from the livery facilities south of the A142. A better solution, supported by both cyclists and equestrians, would be to place a crossing on the western arm of the roundabout with a path on the north side of the roundabout to connect it with the existing path. And Mr. Powell has given you a diagram of just such a proposal. This is a route already taken informally by a number of existing pedestrians and cyclists. This should be a Pegasus crossing capable of accommodating cyclists and horse riders as well as pedestrians, with push buttons high enough to be capable of being pressed by someone on horseback. Such a crossing has recently been installed, as I've just said, at the Babraham Institute roundabout. A Pegasus crossing on the western arm would at least demonstrate some alignment with the combined authorities' local transport plan. It would also assist in furthering the aims of the rights of way improvement plan, reconnecting pre-existing paths bisected by the creation of the A142 and offering entry from south of the A142 into the triangle between Meeple, Ely and Pymore, which has enormous potential for leisure and other uses. An amendment to provide a Pegasus crossing to the western arm of the roundabout rather than a pedestrian crossing to the eastern arm is absolutely critical in addressing the objections that have been made to the original design. It has the support of local representatives of the British Horse Society as well as of the Ely Cycling Campaign, and I would urge members to amend the recommendation to this effect. The council should then work with local equestrian and cycling representatives on the design of such a crossing to ensure that it is fit for purpose. Finally, the recent works to the BP roundabout at the junction of the A10 and the A142 have caused months of misery to residents on unofficial cut-through routes, both north and south of the A142. I would ask officers to liaise with affected residents and parish councils at the earliest opportunity to discuss working practices and how residents can be protected as far as possible from the negative effects of these roadworks while they are ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. Members, do you have any matters and questions for clarification from Councillor Dupre? I see, yep, I see one hand up. So, Councillor Batchelor.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Dupre, you mentioned there were some livery businesses in the vicinity of the roundabout. Just looking at the map we have in our agenda, would you mind just indicating roughly where those are in relation to the roundabout for me, please?
The livery yards are to the south of the A142, just west of the roundabout, between the roundabout and the A10.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I see no other hands raised for clarification. So thank you, Lorna Dupre, Councillor Dupre, for your input. Much appreciated. You're most welcome, obviously, to stay to listen to the debate, which will now start to happen. So, members of the committee, I am also aware that there is an amendment. I've got Councillor Manning and Councillor Howes up, so perhaps it might be useful at this point if we go to Councillor Manning, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, I'm not going to repeat the thing. I agree with the two public speakers. So I want to move an amendment to recommendation B in the paper, and that's to change that recommendation. I'll just quickly read it out. So it will change the recommendation so that it reads, approve the addition of a signalised Pegasus Crossing to the west of the roundabout within the scope of the project, and cover this with the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority through a change request. Officers should consult with Ely Cycle Campaign and the British Horse Society on the design of the crossing. And I believe I've got a seconder of Councillor Batchelor for that. No.
Okay. Councillor Batchelor, I believe you're going to second this motion. Is that correct?
Yes, please, Chair.
And just to say that obviously the reasons for moving that have been laid out by the two public speakers, so I won't repeat them.
No. Okay, understood. Okay, so we have an amendment. We have an amendment which has been proposed and seconded. I'll now go to Councillor Howell. You have your hand up, so I'll bring in Councillor Howell at this particular point, and then ask other members to consider. Councillor Howell.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to make an amendment to the amendment, and my amendment is such, and I'll read it, and I will read it several times for the benefit of everyone. For Cambridgeshire County Council to explore the option of a combined pedestrian Toucan and Pegasus signalled crossing with the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority. Advice should be sought from the Ely Cycling Campaign and the British Horse Society on the design of the above crossing. I'll read it again because I made a muck-up of it at the beginning. For Cambridgeshire County Council to explore the option of a combined pedestrian, Toucan and Pegasus signalled crossing with the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority. Advice should be sought from the Ely Cycling Campaign and the British Horse Society on the design of the crossing. And unlike the Mayor, I have a seconder lined up.
Okay. Who is seconding that?
That's me, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hartford. Can I just actually, at this particular point, particularly for members of the public, we have got two amendments on the table. Which one do I take first, please? Dan or Dawn?
The first one that was put forward, so Councillor Manning's.
Okay, so that is the one which we debate first and vote first before we go to the amendment of the amendment. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that clarification, and I hope that is clear to members of the public listening. So we are debating Councillor Manning's proposals as he has already read out. So it's now opportunity to debate those. I'm looking for any hands up. Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is directed to Councillor Manning. Can you just summarise, Councillor Manning, please, what is the difference between your motion and Councillor Howell's, please?
Am I okay to come in, Chair?
Yes, indeed, please. It's directed directly to you, Ian. Yeah,
I think the primary difference, Councillor King, is just that I'm specifying that the crossing should be on the west side. The rest of it is, I think Councillor Howell would agree with me, is kind of slightly different wording, but essentially the same result, that it's a Pegasus crossing or a Toucan crossing. But the major difference is that I'm specifying that the crossing should be on the west side rather than the east side.
Can I just follow up on that, please, Mr. Chairman?
Indeed.
Why do you feel that it's important to specify which side, as we aren't the decision-making authority in all of this?
Well, Chair, I think we're responding, Councillor King, I think we're responding to the two public questions and the very strong arguments they've put forward as to why the west side is important. And I obviously take your point that we are ultimately, it is a CPCA, but I don't think that stops us taking a view at this stage. I think there's always a danger on these things that as we move further through further tiers, the next tier can say, well, you know, the decision wasn't made at the previous tier, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the paper is specifically keeping in the paper, it is specifically saying the east side. So my worry is although I take your point that there's an issue of who's making the actual final decision, I think if we are passing a paper unamended that has east side in it, the danger is it will end up being the east side, and the argument that will come back at the next stage is, well, you agreed to the east side. So that's why I'm making the specification at this stage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Manning, for the clarification.
Okay, I've got a couple of other speakers, so we'll go now to Councillor Kavanagh.
Yeah, thanks for that previous question. It's convinced me as John Powell's presentation has convinced me that the west side seems to be the most appropriate way forward on this, with the Pegasus Crossing. So I'm supporting Councillor Manning's amendment for being very specific on those 2 points on the amendment. And on a lighter note, I noticed just before Lorna came on, there was an illustration of, it might have been her, on a camel. I was just wondering whether camels fit into the category of being part of the equestrian community, and whether the switch, the button, will be high enough for camel riders. Just a lighter note on things.
Thank you for the lighter note, Councillor Kavanagh. I think we will move on from camels. Okay. Councillor Hartford, you have your hand up. We're currently debating Councillor Manning's proposals amendment. Councillor Hartford.
Thank you, Chairman. I absolutely support in principle what Councillor Manning is saying, but I think that the element of the second motion covers all the points that need to be revisited on this. I think that the proposal as it stands has several points that need reconsideration, and thus the alternative wording of advice should be sought from those two very articulate and knowledgeable organisations, I think it more than covers it. And I certainly will be watching very carefully how this proceeds and supporting as much as I possibly can the requests that are currently being made to make changes.
Okay, Councillor Manning.
Chair, just in consideration of the comments that have been made and Councillor Howell's amendment, could I ask that if I made one tiny alteration to my amendment, that it would get more broad support, and that the tiny alteration would simply be to change the wording of the final sentence, which is officers should consult with Ely Cycle Cam and the British Horse Society on the design of the crossing, was changed to say on the design and location of the crossing. So I would remove from my amendment the bit about specifying that it would be moved to the west. So that first paragraph would remain, and I'd be changing so it says design and location. And I'm wondering if Councillor Howell, so I would remove the specification saying west, but is that clear, Chair?
Mr. Chairman,
sorry. Councillor Howell.
Yeah, no, sorry, Mr. Chairman. All I was going to ask is, could we have the amendment read out in full now, please? That's what I was asking.
Ian, could you read it out? I think I've grasped what you're saying, which is to take out to the west of the roundabout.
Yeah, so approve
and then read it out, please, Ian.
Yeah. So approve the addition of a signalised Pegasus Crossing within the scope of the project and cover this with the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority through a change request. Officers should consult with the Ely Cycle Campaign and the British Horse Society on the design and location of the crossing.
So that's
Mr. Chairman, I think that very much encompasses what I was going to say as well. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think that very much encompasses. I think, to be honest, that amendment and the one that I've got on mine are virtually the same.
Okay.
Therefore, if that's been the case, Chairman, and I do think they are the same, I'd be happy to second that amendment. Whatever we are now, I will second that and drop mine, if that's okay with Councillor Batchelor, because I haven't got a clue where we are at the moment.
Okay. Well, I think where we are is trying to reach some agreement between us all, okay, about what the sensible way forward and what the recommendation is. Remembering the recommendation will go to the combined authority, but they are the decision makers in this process. So that I think is, so my starting point actually will ask Councillor Batchelor if he is content with what we've been discussing and the way forward.
So if I get it right, Chairman, Ian's motion has been amended to as he read out, and Mark will now be seconding.
Correct.
Yeah, that's fine with me, Chairman.
Chair, do you want me to read it out one more time just for clarity?
Yes, please.
Maybe more accurately, Ian, for Dawn, okay, who is writing the minutes, you need to be accurate as to what is recorded and what we are all agreeing to. So,
okay. So
please read.
Approve the addition of a signalised Pegasus Crossing to the roundabout within the scope of the project and cover this with the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority through a change request. Officers should consult with Ely Cycling Campaign and the British Horse Society on the design and location of the crossing.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to second that amendment.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Dawn, have you captured that, please?
Have, Chairman.
Thank you. That's most important. I've got Linda Hartford. No, I've got Graham Hughes. I think actually, perhaps it will be appropriate for Graham to make some comment at this point, Ian and Mark. Graham, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My only comment just for all members is just I think a sort of need to recognise that whatever comes out of this will have to be designed, it will have to be safety audited and checked. And so I would just, if I'm being really honest with members, express a degree of caution in limiting to a particular type of crossing, because Pegasus crossings have particular space requirements. So at this stage, I couldn't guarantee that we actually could fit in or safely accommodate a Pegasus crossing in that area. So I absolutely understand the will of members, if at all possible, to include all users, but I'm just a little concerned that this committee then would agree to a specific type of crossing, that if through detailed design we couldn't incorporate that, we would need to come back to you again. I think my second point was going to be about the Combined Authority, but I think in the wording that's being proposed, that is covered, because whatever we do, we would need to go back to the Combined Authority and request their authority. So they have agreed the principle of a signalised crossing, but I think if we were to move with something very specific and different, we would need to have their approval. So it's really just with those caveats, Chairman, that I just wish members to be aware as you vote.
Okay, Councillor Howe, I think we're nearly there. Councillor Howe.
Chairman, it would be fair to say that whether it would be a Pegasus, toucan, puffin, pelican, or, for example, a zebra, we would be happy for you to use your discretion as long as we can actually see a signalised crossing there. But we understand that health and safety and the auditor of the road would come first, but we understand that. I think that's
just for clarity also, I know that this particular roundabout quite well. I have used it very frequently, so fully aware of all the issues. And of course, as an authority, we do need to take account of land. We need to take account of costs. We need to account of safety, and where the actual location is. It is, I think, something for the design to make sure that it is safety audited, etc. I think Graham Hughes's advice is well received by members. Okay, because we have to take those into account. Whoever does it, whether it's the Cambridgeshire County Council, whether it's East Cambs or City Council, or of course the Combined Authority. So of course we have to take all of those points into consideration in respect of the design. I've got nobody else wishing to speak. We have had a proposal which has been amended. We now have a proposer and a seconder. Councillor King, you have your hand up. Oh.
I do, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, as you've used this on a number of occasions, have you ever had occasion to use it with a camel?
No, but thank you. I must thank Councillor Kavanagh for that comment at some point or other in the future, I think. Okay, no, I have not, but I have driven it frequently. I have also driven it when they were doing the work on the A10 as well, and have actually seen that work, which is now, of course, finished. Members, I think we have reached what I describe as a compromise from all parties. Okay, it has been proposed, it has been seconded, has been read out. Dawn's got that minuted correctly. So I'm going to go to a vote, and I'm looking for any dissent from what has been read out. I'm not seeing any hand up, so therefore that amendment as proposed by Councillor Manning and seconded by Councillor Howe is unanimous. Thank you, members.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can we just say thank you to you for steering us to reach a consensus on this? I'm really pleased about that, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely seconded, Chair.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that. I must go downstairs at some point today and tell my wife I've achieved something. Okay, apologies for that comment as well, really. We now move on to item 7, which is the Cambridgeshire County Council's response to Network Rail consultation on the Ely area capacity enhancement scheme, if I can just get all of that out quickly. So I think it's Jack Eagle who's going to introduce that proposal. There has been a lot of consultation on that already, and it's been well received to date. So that's just an intro from me, members. So Jack, can you please introduce the report?
Yeah, hello, members. I'll just give a very brief introduction to the sort of a summary of the proposed consultation.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. I just, on a really boring, pedantic constitutional point, do we not now need to vote for the actual amended item? Otherwise, we haven't voted for the actual recommendations. And I know it's going to be unanimous, but sorry, it's pedantic. I don't want us to get in trouble. But...
Well, Ian, as I saw no hands up when I said, okay, is there any dissent? If there had been any dissent, I was anticipating somebody to put their blue hand up. I saw no hands, therefore it is unanimous. Unless Dawn tells me something different. Dawn?
No problem with that, Chairman.
I think I'm
It's
clear.
very clear that all members were in favour and there was no dissent.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies, Chair, and apologies, Jack.
Oh, it's okay. That's okay. Back to you, Jack, please.
Yeah, okay. So Network Rail are consulting on the Ely area capacity enhancements, also known as Ely North rail improvements to a junction just north of Ely. This proposed response is the first response in a stage of consultations that Network Rail are planning over the next few years. This one doesn't really give any specific details on what exactly Network Rail are proposing, but more gives an overview of the whole project, and also provides a bit of detail into the timescales for further consultations, which are detailed in the reports. But ultimately, it would sort of conclude with Network Rail submitting a Transport and Works Act order sometime in winter, spring 2023. The CCC proposed response detailed here focuses on the report that went to E&E Committee in February 2018, and that's summarised in the report at section 2.6. So the focus of the report is that a general support for the scheme, a need to make sure that the capacity is created by the scheme, that's rail for both freight and passenger trains, is great enough to help with be enough for future demand. And also it's very clear in the proposed response that the needs of residents and businesses in the Queen Adelaide and Prickwillow and surrounding area need to be protected, and that the County Council would oppose any scheme that restricts access in those through those level crossings in the Queen Adelaide area. So it also details that there's a need for Network Rail to engage fully with the County Council regarding any changes to the highways network. And as you already highlighted, Chair, there has been engagement with local members, the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority, East Cambridgeshire District Council, and the Shared Planning Service for City and South Cambs, which their responses are all along similar lines to the proposed one here. So that's... Yeah.
Yep, thank you very much indeed, Jack. I think we have some comments from Councillor Dupre, which I think were circulated. Dan, are you going to read those out, or are we taking those as read as the members have seen it, please?
Those as read. There's also comments from Councillor Liz Every that are circulated also.
Okay. Members, you've seen that there has been a lot of cooperation here. I'm opening up for debate before I entered the debate myself. Okay, so Linda Hartford, followed by Councillor Howe. Linda.
Thank you. Oh, have I? Yes. Sorry, I couldn't see if I'd unmuted myself. Thank you very much. I do want to say, first of all, a big thank you for what is, in my view, a very comprehensive and well-worded response. I'd like, please, to refer to the second page of item 4 in the draft response. I'm sorry, I don't have page numbers, so I've tried to highlight it for you as best I can, and I'm referring to the bullet points at that point. I want to say that I fully support the view that's been expressed that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. There has to be greater joined-up thinking on any major strategic project. And in my view, if you look at the A14 Cambridge to Huntingdon project, you can see what happens when you spoil the ship for a ha'porth of tar. There's a huge local contribution, financial contribution to this project. And I feel that we must do everything we can to influence the decision makers to consider the local needs that can be delivered with sufficient goodwill to listen to the case that's being made. I'm particularly pleased to see expressed the insistence that the residents of Adelaide and Prickwillow should be considered, because I think the time has come when we do have to give much more attention to the needs and views of local people. So I just want to say thank you very much for what I think does cover all of that really well. I've got one question, and it may just be me being very stupid, but can I ask, is the number of potential new dwellings really exactly the same number as the number of new jobs that can be created locally to the stations that are mentioned? In each case, it says 1,080, and it just seemed to me that that was quite a coincidence. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Linda. I think I'll go to the next speaker. That'll give opportunity for Jack to check out those figures, okay, which could be a typo or not, as the case may be. So, Jack, would you please check those figures? We will come back to you when Councillor Howe and Councillor King have spoken. So, Mark Howe, please.
Very quickly, Chairman, I just want to say that how impressed I was that we managed to get in both at the very beginning of the consultation and also in between, about twice and at the end, about how we shan't do anything which has got the detriment to the residents in Queen Adelaide, Pickwill and surrounding areas. I was very impressed. That paragraph was put in about 3 or 4 times. I don't think it could be emphasised more, and I think it shows what strong support we have for that particular area. So I'd like to thank the author of this report, whether it be Jack or his team, for putting that in, and that is much appreciated. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say how delighted I was to see at least 2 references to supporting Wisbech Rail, because really this improvement at Ely is essential to make that new line or reopen line a success. Thank you.
Okay. Jack, have you sought clarity on the numbers, please, of houses vis-a-vis jobs?
Yes, I apologise. That was a typo, and congratulations for spotting it. It's 557 jobs.
Okay.
So I'll make sure that's corrected, and apologies for any confusion caused by that.
I was going to make a few comments as chairman. I attended a public meeting in the middle of those 3 roundabouts at Pickwillow. There is a village hall in the middle there as well. And for those that have never been and seen the crossings, 3 crossings, must be unique throughout the country, let alone the county, to have 3 crossings in such a small location. Okay, and you actually can get through one and then have to stop for the next one as a train goes through, and then possibly sometimes have to stop at the next one because it's all where it's what I call Spaghetti Junction of Ely. I gave it a nickname at the public inquiry because actually we must protect those businesses, and there are businesses there. I met businesses when I went to the village hall meeting, along, by the way, with lots of residents and community people and also the MP as well. So I think I'm most grateful for the contribution. I've certainly read the contributions from local members and fully endorse what they're saying. So I think, members, we have got a recommendation before us. If I go back to it, which is at A, B and C, and I'm looking really to see if there's any dissent from those three recommendations. I see no dissent, so I'm taking that as a unanimous vote in favour of the three recommendations as laid out on the papers. Thank you, members. We'd like to move on, I think, to item 8. Okay, item 8 is the finance monitoring report for September, and I think that's going to be presented by Sarah Haywood. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
When you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Right, this is the regular finance monitoring report as at the end of September. There are 4.4 million worth of pressures, mainly due to COVID, and this mainly relates to the non-achievement of income in the various areas. And then contra to that, there's a one-off adjustment for street lighting, which we have discussed previously. So that on the revenue side, there's a 3.3 million net position, net pressure overspend for P&E. On the capital side, the government has allocated Cambridgeshire County Council with 4.1 million more pothole grant than was estimated in the business plan. So committee has asked if it supports allocating this to be spent on additional resurfacing schemes, and if it does, then it will go to General Purposes Committee for formal approval. Thank you, Chair. That's all I was going to say.
Okay, members, that particular reckon about the 4.1 is at 2.3 for reference. Okay, so Councillor Hartford.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And it is on that particular point that I want to ask for some clarification. Obviously, I'm delighted to think there might be additional funding available to do more than the ad hoc patching that we're currently able to do. But I do have to ask the question about how that is going to help the most people, because what I'm afraid of is if we agree to allocate that to more sophisticated schemes or repairs, that whilst it will benefit the few, it may be a disbenefit to the many. And so I just wanted to ask about the budgets that are currently available to our local highways officers, who do a fabulous job of trying to stretch them as far as they possibly can, but to ask whether or not there ought to be consideration for some of this money to go into helping them.
Okay,
Agreed.
I've got some other speakers, Linda. I know Richard Lumley is on this meeting and I can see he's still with us. So I will ask Richard Lumley to come back, but I'll take Simon King and then Henry, and then ask Richard Lumley to come back, particularly with what you've just said, Linda. Thank you. Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions and a compliment. I've had really positive feedback about the delivery of the Local Highways Initiative scheme for Black Dyke in Tid St Giles, the Bridleway Bridge repairs. So I'd be most grateful if you could pass that on to Jacob and Ruth and the other officers who have delivered that. It says order raised, but it's actually been completed now, which is wonderful. I also wanted to ask about the funding gap that we have. And I just wondered if Sarah or Graham or Richard could give us some indication of how they hope to bridge that gap, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Henry, I'll come to you next, and then we'll go, I think, to officers. Henry?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, two questions from me. One about street lighting. I said, I know we've been over this in the past, but just as a memory jogger for me, could have a reminder as to why we've got the 998,000 adjustment on the street lighting. contract? And the second question follows on from Linda's, is just, do we know at this stage how the 4.1 million additional funding for road surfacing would be divided around the county?
Okay, no, understood. So I think there's two questions there. Richard, do you want to do both of them, or Graham, are you going to toss a coin or what? The street lighting, I think it's to do with the gap and also the 4.1 grant, if I'm catching what member said. So Richard, do you want to start with you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just picking up street lighting first. So that amount of money is on the base of some legacy work that should have been done by Balfour Beatty as part of the sort of core investment period. And it involved things such as electrical testing, illuminated bollard and sign cleaning. And so that is what that relates to. And it's been agreed with Balfour Beatty in terms of picking up that, because that work was never carried out. But equally, at the same time as receiving that money, we've put in place a process to make sure that that work does take place going forward. In terms of the additional funding from central government, so the reason we've got this extra money is because this year government combined two sources of funding: the Pothole Action Fund, with which you're all familiar with, and from which we've received money on an annual basis for the last few years, but also the Challenge Fund. The Challenge Fund historically was a pot of money that you had to bid in for, and if you were successful, you would get some money, which we did for the Drought Damaged Roads programme a couple of years ago. Otherwise, you wouldn't receive anything. Government have taken the decision not to have the Challenge Fund as a competitive process, and have therefore divided that pot of money out across highway authorities nationally, which has resulted in us getting this extra money. In terms of its use, it is specifically for highway maintenance, and getting that amount of money is a really good opportunity for us to make significant improvements in areas of the network that we otherwise wouldn't be able to in a more sustainable fashion. So over and above just the sort of the pothole or patching repair, this has been identified for sort of wider resurfacing and reconstruction. It's partly been identified for that because in terms of pothole repairs and patching and the localised work, there is sufficient funding in each of the district areas that for this year. The other thing I should add, this money, the intention is to try and spend it this year, and therefore it's been subject to the view of this committee. It has been programmed in for delivery via both the Eastern Highways Alliance and Skanska through the highway contract. In terms of spread around the county, we've identified 13 schemes which do cover the county, and I'm happy to circulate the list of those schemes following committee to you all. But just to give you a flavour, there are 5 schemes in Fenland, 3 in Hunts area, 2 in East Cambs, 2 in Cambridge, and 1 in South Cambs. But as I say, happy to share the list of the specific schemes with you all.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Graham Hughes, do you wish to add anything to what Richard has said? I've just one query for Richard, okay, anything to add, Graham?
No, Chairman, no, that's,
okay.
I think that covers it all, thank you.
Okay, Richard, can I go back to streetlights, please? You gave an answer, I think, to Councillor Batcher that work would be done. When will that work be done? In this financial year?
Apologies, Chairman. So it's work that's carried out
on a recurring basis. So we have to carry out certification of the electrical connections on a regular basis.
Right.
It will be an ongoing sign and bollard cleaning. So it's not for a specific year.
Okay, I think I understand. It's the sort of thing you have to do if you've got a village hall or a public building where you have to, electricians have to go in and certify that what you've got is still up to the right appropriate standard.
Yes, absolutely.
That's my interpretation of it. Thank you for that clarification. I wasn't clear. Noel Kavanagh.
Yeah, I'm sorry if this is something very obvious that I'm missing. But anyway, I think I need a bit of explanation. On page 63, under funding, we've got the figures for the first tranche and second tranche fundings from the DFT. And then if one goes forward to page 67, there's Appendix 3, there's a grant income analysis. And I was wondering if it could be explained to me, because I think I might be missing something, but why the figures are very different for, the explanation of where the money's going.
Okay.
Because they're hugely, there's quite a variation there.
Okay.
So I might be missing something that's very simple.
Okay, hopefully somebody will be able to answer. In respect to tranche 1 and tranche 2, which is the active travel allocation from the combined authority, I can confirm, Noel, that we are anticipating by the end of this week to receive notification about tranche 2. We have not yet received the notification from central government. We're anticipating it coming by the end of the week, okay, on tranche 2. Okay, and until such times as officers and myself and Mark and other members have seen that, it's difficult to know, because sometimes you get the allocation come, but it actually's got a question mark against them, or there's perhaps some criteria which they've added. So at the moment, no, I can't really answer too much. I don't think Graham Hughes will be able to on tranche 2 until we've gone and got the notification. So can anybody else help with Noel or Graham, or or Richard or Sarah even?
Chairman, I was going to suggest probably Sarah, just in terms of the numbers in the report, because you are correct, Chairman, in terms of knowing, and we will know about tranche 2. Sarah, could you answer the sort of apparent differences that Councillor Kavanagh has raised?
Sorry, can I just double check? It's between the funding in section Appendix 3 and what was the other?
Where is it? Yeah, page 67 and page 63. Page 67, you've got like tranche 1 has got expected amount 374 and then 1340 for tranche 2. But further back on page 63, the figures there are quite different. The first tranche is 467. And I mean, I'm just saying, I might be missing something that's very obvious, but it's just that the figures are quite, there's quite a variation there.
I'll tell you what, Sarah, why do you...
Can I come back in writing on that? Sorry, it's difficult to track it through when I haven't got the paperwork, it's all online.
Okay, I'm sure Noel is quite content. What he's looking for, I think, and please circulate it to all members, is some clarity, if you like, in members. If you're content, Noel, I'll ask Sarah to circulate that in due course, as they say, when she's had greater opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Many thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Manning.
Thanks, Chair. I'm guessing the answer to Noel's question, by the way, is capital and revenue. As in one's a revenue and the other one is combined. I think that's probably the answer. But anyway, just a quick question about LHRs, which I think we all absolutely value as a scheme. But on Appendix 6, there's this budget against spend of quite a big difference in September in that year. And I'm just sort of tracking that. I was trying to track that last night against the schemes that the RAG status is, and of course it's a bit difficult because there's no numbers for it, but it was just a general comment. Because if you look at Huntingdonshire has got quite a lot of backed up LHI schemes, and in general we've got a few years where we've got LHI schemes that haven't been done. I'm just wondering, is the reason for that, and is the hope from officers that the changes that were made to the LHI process recently account for the fact that essentially we're on kind of yellow and green for most of the schemes this year, but obviously the schemes in the previous years have had more difficulties? Or do they think it was more to do with particular difficulties with all those little schemes that had particular problems?
I think I could add to that, Ian, but I'll ask Richard Lumley. I think it's called the current pandemic. A lot of staff, highway staff, 80 comes to mind to remember, were reallocated when we had the first lockdown, and therefore it caused quite a bit of discussion about what goes forward with local highways. So I'll ask Richard to pick that one up, but I think a lot of it actually relates to the current climate we're having to live through.
Yeah, would that affect the old schemes though from 2 years ago?
Yes, it was, Ian. Okay, my understanding it was, and it may affect, the new ones as well. Okay, which includes some in yours. It's very nice of you to support mine in my division. Thank you very much. Okay, so with that, Richard Lumley, I think the indication is you're going to do mine first and Councillor Manning second. Okay, to add a bit of light-heartedness. Richard Lumley, I wonder if you could just address that particularly about local highways, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So prior to the pandemic, when we started this financial year, there was a carry forward of around 20 schemes, but then with a number of those actually were out of our control. For instance, they were schemes on land that wasn't adopted highway, and that in some instances, as you'll see from the sort of the RAG status update, is still the case. However, once we hit this year, as the chairman has explained, we had to refocus resources, and that then had a knock-on effect in terms of being able to deliver some of the LHIs. In particular, at the start, we stopped all non-essential safety and non-safety critical work on the highway for a sort of probably 4 or 5 week period, as supply chains and subcontractors closed down based on the government guidance. When those restarted again, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, there was then a period of time for them to get back up to speed, and that also coincided with staff sort of coming back to their substantive roles following redeployment, and that has had this knock-on effect with this year's schemes. So that's where we are with the LHIs. I think, as you pointed out, that the sort of the one area where we've still got a bit of a backlog is Huntingdonshire, and that's been due to sort of staff changes as well in the team for that area. But otherwise, they are now all up and running and progressing as they should be.
I think the other issue here that must be actually said at this particular point, of course, is a lot of those staff are also trying to do the active travel program as well. Okay, so if you put all that together, I think both Mark and myself are fully aware of those particular issues, if you like, to be resolved and progressed. But when you go into a second lockdown at the moment, there may be some more, have to be some more redeployment to support vulnerable people, and it may have a consequence in. But I think all of the parishes, all of the district councillors and the county councils, I would ask for your indulgence a little bit and your patience, because we will get there, but it may take a little longer. Councillor Hartford.
Thank you very much. And I just want to underline what you've just said, because I was utterly amazed at some of the roles that our highways officers took on during the first lockdown. You know, it was a just totally different role to what they normally do, and they are to be congratulated and applauded for the contribution they made to the enormous effort that the county council made to support people during that first awful lockdown. I do think that we need to be really as patient as we possibly can be, and to explain to our residents, you know, the circumstances that have arisen that have now resulted in some delays. But I want to say a big thank you to them for everything that they did then and they now continue to do as they try to catch up.
You're on mute, Chair.
Yep. Your hand is up, Ian.
Yeah, I just wanted to second what Councillor Harford said, actually, and just ask that we do, I'm sure this is already in hand, but we do some sort of going, you know, given we're in a second lockdown and given there may be sort of extra redeployments coming, that we do some survey of staff wellbeing within highways, just to check that the staff have got the support they need, and potentially, you know, look at some sort of anything we can do around backfilling or getting in support for those staff on a short-term basis to make sure that we're not just completely dragging everyone to the bone.
Okay, fully understood. Councillor Mark Howell.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, been asked to put my hand up for Councillor David Connor, who is unable to do that at the moment for technical reasons.
Okay, Councillor Connor then.
Yes, sorry to bring this up in the meeting. I just, contrary to Councillor King's comments regarding these LHIs, I have a problem with the LHI project completed in Ponders Bridge in July, August this year. I primarily put together the funding from 2 LHI years, basically £20,000, with £26,000 coming from third-party funding. These were traffic calming measures that were designed by a Stanska employee and seconded by CCC, seconded by CCC. So you can imagine my dismay when I had an email from Ruth Raper and Matt Stainton to say one of the build outs of the 3 was considered unsafe and had to be removed. Basically, I had a meeting with Ruth and Matt yesterday on site, social distancing, of course, and personally found no problems with the entire traffic calming projects as a whole. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is the residents are up in arms against this, you know, being one of the buildings being taken out, when the building that's being taken out, especially when no alternative measures have been offered. So I just wonder if officers could take that away and get some sort of semblance of normality to bring, really. It's absolutely ludicrous that sort of third parties put £26,000. It wasn't picked up in the second audit, and it had an independent audit to find this out. It's absolutely ludicrous, an absolute waste of money. And to my mind, the traffic measures do work, and residents have seen this for themselves. They're absolutely up in arms, as I said. They're happy now. A lady could let an 11-year-old child for the first time walk across to his friends 200 yards up the road because it slowed the traffic down. And so anyway, I'm really, really upset about it. I really want some sort of semblance of normality to come back so you can make proper decision making. But sorry for the rant. That's over. I'm out. Thank you, Chairman, for indulging me in my little rant. Thank you.
Members are entitled to have a little rant now and again. Can I ask Richard Lumley, please, to take that issue away that Councillor Connor has brought to our attention? Can I please therefore ask that you investigate that, go back to him, and can you please copy in myself and Mark Howe about the results of your discussion, please?
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay.
Yes, will do, Chairman.
Okay, I've got no other speakers. I think there's 2 recommendations there: to review a note and to confirm the general purposes support for the allocation of the additional, excuse me, 4.1 grant for resurfacing schemes. Are we all content with those proposals going forward?
Yeah.
I'm looking to see
Agreed.
if anybody's. So everybody is agreed that therefore Dawn is unanimous. Thank you, members. Can we move on? I think to the last item, which is, I think, is it Dan or going to deal with this?
Chairman.
Okay, Dawn. Apologies, Dawn.
It's just the agenda plan, just to note 2 changes since publication. The risk register review and Coldham's Lane roundabout reports will now be considered in January and not at the December meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. I see no hands raised, so I guess no other member wishes to say anything. So I think, members, we have reached the end of the meeting. There will be circulated that confidential piece after the meeting later. I'm sure you'll receive all that in due course. So thank you very much, members, for your time and indulgence, and have the rest of a nice afternoon. So thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.